CP298. This is a notice you might receive from the IRS if you're behind on your taxes and they intend to levy your Social Security benefits in order to pay your tax bill. So we'll walk through this notice step by step. We'll tell you about some of the limitations that the federal government has when it comes to seizing assets. So let's go ahead and start with the information at the top of the form. So you've got this notice number CP298. The notice date was January 23rd, 2018. The taxpayer ID number, in this case, is an employer identification number, or EIN. So over here to the left, you can see that this is a company, XYZ or ABC XYZ company, Boulder Street, Hanson, Connecticut. So the most important part of this information at the top is, one, to pay attention to the notice date, because if there's anything that the IRS is going to do, it's going to be a timeline beginning with this notice date. And then two, making sure that your address is up to date so you get the notice as quickly as possible. So the IRS sends a lot of correspondence in writing, and a lot of it goes to the wrong address. And 100% of the time, the IRS does not care about whether or not they sent it to the wrong address, because the IRS's position is any taxpayer can change their address on their tax record at any time. For the vast majority of taxpayers, that's done when you file your tax return on a regular basis. So for most individuals, every year you file a tax return. If you put a new address in the tax return, then the IRS updates your record. Then there are two other ways that you can do it. One, you can call the IRS at this 800 number. You can validate your information and then go through the prompts. And then the second way will be to file the IRS change of address notice. So for individual taxpayers, that's IRS Form 8822. For business owners, such as this company, ABCXYZ company, that would be IRS Form 8822-B. So we'll put links in the show notes to resources we've created about any of the articles and or any of the forms and topics mentioned here. So let's get to the meat of the form itself. So right up front, the intent is to seize up to 15% of your Social Security benefits until your taxes are paid in full. And the amount due is $700. That consists of $625 of back tax, a $25 failure to pay penalty, and then $50 in interest charges. So, and then the IRS has an additional note saying that they've identified this Social Security account as the account to garnish funds from. So if you don't want that to happen and you have the ability to pay immediately, there's a payment voucher that's included at the bottom of page 1. So a couple of notes. One, you can always make a payment on the IRS website. It's electronically secure. It's same level of encryption as your bank would have online, and there's no risk of a check getting lost in the mail or mail fraud happening with your check. But if you're going to make a payment to the IRS, you would make a check or a money order payable to the United States Treasury. You should write your taxpayer ID number, the tax periods, and the form numbers on your payment. So we haven't gotten to the point where there's any tax period or form numbers. I think we'll get to that in the next page or so. The last note that I would make is when you're forwarding your mail payment, make sure that you use the address that's on the voucher, not the address that's at the top here. So in this notice, these are basically the same address, but I've seen a lot of other notices where This address is a completely different city, a different department within the IRS, just a completely wrong address. So, so make sure that if you're sending payment, you always use the address that's on the voucher. That's just a standard best practice. So now on page 2, we're going to break down what you need to immediately do. So the IRS says, pay us immediately, $700, and this looks like this is the 30 days that they're required to give you before they start levying taxes, as they mentioned, from your Social Security benefits. So generally speaking, if you can't pay the amount due, you may be able to set up a payment plan, something as low as $700. You can do that directly on the IRS website. Just go to that URL. You can probably set up a very quick and easy online payment plan. You can also file IRS Form 9465 if your tax bill is above a certain threshold and you can't do it online. So we'll put links in the show notes to how you would navigate that form. So you can also get assistance from the Taxpayer Advocate Service if you qualify as a low-income taxpayer based on your income. Then you can actually get representation assistance for free or for a nominal fee from the IRS. So we'll put a link in the show notes to the Taxpayer Advocate form. You can go to this page right here. You can also request taxpayer assistance from the Taxpayer Advocate Service on IRS Form 911. And the Taxpayer Advocate, their sole responsibility is to advocate on behalf of taxpayers to ensure that the IRS collections process and other processes that impact taxpayers are being followed based on applicable procedures and federal law. So that's their entire job, is to be the taxpayer's advocate. If you want to update your contact information, you can use this form here. You can also have someone contact the IRS on your behalf. If you do, you would need to give them the power of attorney to do so. That's IRS Form 2848. That form contains a lot of information, so about what you can delegate to someone, what you can't. So I'll put links in the show notes to that form, the resources that we created to cover that. There's a little bit of information on the billing details. So IRS Form 941 was the amount that you owed. Obviously, this is just a hypothetical because these numbers don't add up to the $700 amount that was mentioned up here. So obviously, this is for illustrative purposes. There's a breakdown of failure to pay penalties and how the IRS calculates the penalty for that. The IRS can remove penalties. In this case, this was a $25 penalty for failure to pay. So if you file IRS Form 843, that's the claim for a refund and request for abatement. There are a couple of different ways that the IRS would abate your penalty. So you can have your penalty abated under a program known as First Time Abate, or a procedure known as First Time Abate. This is available in most circumstances, to any taxpayer that has incurred a penalty for the first time, and the IRS would just go through that procedure when you complete Form 843 to remove the penalty. You can also remove penalties or request that they be removed due to reasonable cause. So reasonable cause might be extenuating circumstances, such as a natural disaster or a death of a family member. There's verbiage right here that discusses kind of the spirit of what reasonable cause would be considered. And then finally, if you specifically asked for written advice from the IRS on a tax issue, you gave the IRS enough information to make an accurate recommendation, and then you implemented that recommendation, but the IRS penalized you for it, you can request abatement of that penalty there. So interest is a little bit trickier. You can't really request that the IRS abate interest. However, the IRS will recalculate interest in the case that your tax liability is reduced, or if there's something that's found, if there's a penalty that's abated, then the IRS would also recalculate the penalty or the interest to make sure that they're not charging interest on a penalty that no longer exists. So we're going to take a quick look at what the IRS website has to say about this particular notice. So we're just going to go to this notice page and see if there's any additional information. So a couple of frequently asked questions. You should not contact the Social Security Administration for this. You can request a payment plan. There's also a link to a form here, IRS Form 12-153. That's a request for a collection due process or an equivalent hearing. So if you think that the tax was unfairly imposed to begin with, you can always go through this to request an appeal. So we'll put links in the show notes to all of these resources about these different forms mentioned here. So I think that covers it for this video. I'm just going to circle back to make sure that there isn't anything that we missed. So as I mentioned, we'll put links in the show notes. If you like our articles, please subscribe to our newsletter. If you like our YouTube videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you have any questions or comments, or if there's another topic that you'd like to see covered in an upcoming video, please hit me up in the comments section. Thank you very much and have a great day.